But we were having a little bit of fellowship and good time this morning. I hope you all enjoyed, those of you who were here last night, the Big Shots golf. There were a few big shots over there and some who thought they were, but it was all fun. It was great. I'm Jay Barrett, principal. I keep saying that. That's what I do. I give tours all the time. My name is Jay Barrett. I'm the vice chair of Amarillo College, and I'm the chair of CCATT. And it's my pleasure to welcome you here to this morning to our presentation, Data and Advocacy Workshop. Here with us today, we have Dr. Janice Hicks from Odessa College. I visited with her this morning and found her to be delightful and someone that you're going to learn a lot from. We are glad you joined us this morning for this pre-conference workshop about data and advocacy for community colleges in Texas. Our wonderful, it says wonderful, our wonderful, delightful presenter is Dr. Janice Hicks, the Associate Vice President for Institutional Effectiveness at Odessa College. I look forward to learning alongside you today, and you've got in your conference workbook a place to take notes. Please make use of that this morning. Dr. Hicks.
Thank you so much, Principal. I feel like I need to be on my best behavior. What an honor to get to spend some time with Board of Trustees from across the state. I want to recognize two of my Board of Trustees, Dr. Deaver, Trudy Lewis, for their belief in me to present on this topic to you all. So who's excited about data? Okay. Usually when I talk about data with folks on my campus, they see me coming, they go the other way. They're like, oh, she's going to want a number. I know it. But it's so critical to the work that we do. So this is a description of the session that's in the program. But we have 2 hours together, so we're going to take some breaks. Feel free to use the facilities, grab water, coffee as you need to stay hydrated. But I want to do introductions because I want to know who's in the room. Okay, there we go. So let's do introductions. I'd love to know your name, what college you're representing, the years of service that you have on your board, and then your comfort level when it comes to data. So I will start with this table right up front.
Jay Barrett, Amarillo College, years of service at Amarillo College. 9 years, and I am comfortable with data, and I'm not saying I enjoy it necessarily, but it's very, very important to guide us to make sure that we're doing what we say we're doing.
Tara Deaver, I'm at Board of Trustee. I think I'm in my 12th year at Odessa College, and we get a lot of data at the board meeting, so I'm kind of used to what Janice gives us.
Hello all, I'm Trudy Lewis and I'm from Odessa College as well, a retired teacher, and I'm in my 3rd year as a trustee and I'm interested in data.
Hi everyone, I'm Clint Kingsbury from Alamo Colleges, and we're very data driven, so built into our mission statement. So we appreciate the use of data in terms of helping us understand where the challenges are and how to look for patterns and things of that nature to address them.
I'm Adrian Crosco. I'm a trustee at Midland College. I'm on my 3rd year and very comfortable with data. We obviously need it. It's important. And so glad to be here. Thank you.
West Texas friend.
My name is Chris Edens from South Plains College. This is my 2nd year to serve on the Board of Trustees, and I actually wrote a master's thesis on a profile of West Texas Community College agriculture students, and based on the research I conducted, so I'm very comfortable with data.
I think you might be a co-presenter for this session.
My name is Jonathan Feinstein. I don't represent a college with the Education Trust, and our work is really research and advocacy. So, to us, data is a fundamental tool to advocating for students and advocating for policy change. Without it, it's kind of your word against somebody else's.
Hi, everyone. Andrea Thurston, also with the Education Trust. I've been in the role as the policy analyst for 8 months, 9 months, I think, still riding the new hire wave. And I think that I'm pretty comfortable. It depends. I will say that it depends on what it is, but I do feel pretty comfortable with data.
Good morning. My name is Yvette Reyes Hall. I am with Alvin Community College. And well, I'd still consider myself like a newbie because I started last year. And what was the next year's? Yeah. And data comfort. Well, I'm all about data, but I'm learning. So it all looks good right now.
I'm Michael Hoover, also from Alvin Community College. 1 year and data comfort. I live in data. So.
Jake Starkey with Alvin Community College. I've been on the board for 3 years. I hate that, but I'm here. No, I'm kidding. No, I believe that you don't know what you don't know. So that's why I'm here.
Good morning. My name is Steve Solis. I'm a regent, trustee at Brazosport College. Been in that role for 9 years. And as a retired engineer, I am all about data.
And he's a good golfer. He's golfed pretty well.
Vince Solis, Brazosport College. I've been with the college almost 2 years. Been in higher ed for 30 plus, and data is the new oil. So I am very comfortable with data and consume it every day.
I love that. Data is the new oil. I might need to get your permission to use that.
Cliff Boyd, Dallas College. I've been a trustee. I'm in my 3rd year, and data is my friend.
Good morning. I'm Erica Benavides Garcia, and I represent Laredo College. I am a trustee. I am a newbie. I've only been here for 10 months, so I really am eager to learn.
Good morning, Minita Ramirez, President, Laredo College. We enjoy data every day, but I do always believe that we're very data rich and information poor. So the more we learn, the better we can use our data. So thank you.
Good morning, Lupita Cepeda, President of the Laredo College Board of Directors. Been a board of director 5 years and looking forward to learning more data. I don't think we ever get enough information. So thank you for having this session.
Hi, I'm Armin Cantini from Galveston College. I'm a regent there. This is my 13th year, and ditto to all the wonderful things that you've said about data with our love affair for the.
Good morning. My name is Mary Longoria. I'm also from Galveston College, and I've been a regent for 6 years. Data is important. I'm a big advocate in the community, and data gives us that information so we can learn how to advocate best in our communities.
Carla Metzler, Chair of the Board at North Central Texas College. I've been on the board for 13 years, and data is definitely an important factor in the decisions that we all make on a daily basis.
Brent Wallace, Chancellor, North Central Texas College. I prefer data that makes my assumptions accurate, but that's, but I do. So that, no, I do love data, and to Manita's point, I think there's a lot of data without the information behind it. So for me, qualitative is equally important to quantitative. And so I always like to know what's the story behind the data to help us make it richer.
I'm Johnette McCowan, President of McLennan Community College, and my first professional job over 30 years ago, maybe 40, was I was the director of research when I had not a clue what I was doing, and we just did demographics. You know, we filled out forms. So things have changed during that time, and data is real critical to us. And I'm sure most of you are doing what we are doing as we are deciding how to implement the FAST program. We're spending lots of time with data with that.
Good morning. I'm Elizabeth Shivers. I'm with the Texas Association of Community Colleges. I've
only been with them for about a year, but I do have experience at both the coordinating board and I was at one of our colleges, Navarro College, where I started as the director of IR there and did that for about 4.5 years.
Thank you. I'm Steve Jacobs, Austin Community College. I got elected about a year ago, but had a history with the college and helping students get through it. I'm a data guy. If it doesn't have a number, I don't understand it. So I look to check the stories and check the anecdotes and check one's own assumptions as well. So I appreciate data.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Susan Guzman-Trevino, provost at Temple College. I'm starting my 31st year there, and we are immersed in data like most of you all are. And with Dr. Wallace, I'd like to see positively trending data whenever possible, but glad to be here.
I'm Dana Walker from Austin Community College. I've been on the board maybe 3 years now, and I work in tech when I don't do this, so we're very data driven. I use data to make decisions, strategic trade-off decisions.
Good morning. I'm Nan McRaven. I've been on the board for 23 years. And I remember when we started Achieving the Dream, and it helped my institution push us forward in as a trustee and going, gosh, we need to have the data. We need to understand the data as trustees, and therefore we can make better decisions for our community and our students. So I'm glad to be here today. Thanks.
Good morning. My name is Danny Guzman. I represent South Texas College, and I'm in the board of trustees. I'm going on my 3rd year, and this is my 3rd time attending this conference, and I'm just here to learn as much as I can. Thank you.
Paul Rodriguez, South Texas College. I've been on the board 11 years. I'm a past chairman. I'm also honored to be a member of the CCATT board. And as far as data goes, to me, it's pretty important. It's like blood. Can't live without it.
I'm Nicole Eversman. I'm the director for the Trustee Association in the state of Texas. I'm so glad y'all are here. I am comfortable with data. I got a degree from the LBJ School of Public Affairs. They're very quantitative, but I am really excited to learn from Dr. Hicks today.
Oh, I just walked in. Who am I? I'm Robert Glazer from Houston Community College. This is my 10th year. I'm a trustee. I think I've held every seat in the board and committees. They rotate me around a lot, probably for a reason. I love the data because that's the only thing people can come together on. So, and it's, you know, the money's got to follow something. So hopefully it's the data. And I'm always here to meet everybody and get their perspective and hear all the good things that are going on in places besides Houston Community College. Thanks.
David Loeb. I'm a 1st-year regent at Del Mar College.
I'm Rudy Garza, my 3rd year at Del Mar College. And again, it's a lot easier to make good decisions with good data. Thank you.
Good data. Did we miss anyone who came in to get a chance to introduce themselves? Have a couple more folks. I think this is important. As you guys are talking about the different institutions you're from, we all research each other. And so I'm connecting a face with the name of an institution.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Ben McGill. I'm the Associate Vice Chancellor of Economic Opportunity at Dallas College. Came in to start our Labor Market Intelligence Center about 8 years ago.
Buenos dias, Diana Flores, Dallas College, 27 years.
When I say we borrow things from each other, I had a stint at Dallas College, and so we use a lot of the labor market data intelligence that Ben and his team has started.
I'm Raymond Lewis. I'm from Galveston College down in Galveston. I've been a regent for 12 years, I believe, and data comfort. Okay.
Awesome. So there's the days of the past when we have to like convince people to use data, right? It sounds like everybody's very comfortable with utilizing data. So today I'm going to talk about a new framework. And part of this framework is connected to the work that Achieving the Dream is doing. And so I was glad to hear Achieving the Dream mentioned because they're very data driven. How many institutions are part of Achieving the Dream College? So you may be familiar with this, but this is a new framework we're working with them on. So the role of the community college, we'll talk a bit about what's the society gains that a community gets by nature of having a community college. The community college, of course, is very unique to the United States, right? So we developed a system in 1901 where students could start at a lower rate before they transfer to a university. And since that time, community colleges have evolved to be economic engines, social mobility engines, talent development engines in communities. I have to figure out the right place. So this framework we're going to talk about is called community vibrancy. And so from your seat as a board of trustee or working for a nonprofit or working for TAC or the Texas Success Center, why focus on community vibrancy as we think about the role of community colleges, particularly in the state of Texas? What's the connection? Economic development, yeah. Economic development, economic mobility is one of the results of students experiencing a community college or further education. Accountability. Yep, we're going to talk a bit about accountability today as part of this session. And we'll talk about to whom are we accountable, right? Other thoughts? Sustainability, I heard that. Sustainability, we have to, the decisions that we're making today need to be lasting decisions and have an impact for years to come after we've moved on and retired and are, you know, in Hawaii hanging out. But the sustainability is so important. So one thing we also know is that this is higher ed's pathway to a better life, right? We believe wholeheartedly, and I believe this in my 15 years of experience, that the work that I get to do on a community college campus leads to a better life. And I've taught community college students and university students as well. And I asked them, why are you in this class? Why are you enrolled in this institution? Majority of the time they say, a better life. I want a better life than my family had, or I want to do better than my parents, or and so that's the prevailing narrative. You attend a college to achieve a better life. And so the idea or linear path, right, is college attainment, is gainful employment, it's increased earning potential, and then this better life. So it's this social mobility, it's this economic mobility, upward mobility in all aspects, right? We also know, though, the public, and the public meaning the public in Texas, the public across the US, and these are numbers from the US, the public in our communities where you are data scientists and advocates for your campuses, they're losing confidence in what we do in higher education. So just this year, 36%, so it's decreased over the years. What are some reasons that we believe that the confidence, the public confidence, and we're community colleges, right? So we're working closely with our communities. What are the reasons we believe that that folks are less confident in what we have to offer in terms of upward mobility? Graduation rates? Is that what you said? Yep. Reduced enrollment? Oh, yeah. You know, and that was exacerbated by the pandemic. The good news is that many of our campuses post-pandemic, I'll use the term post loosely, we've seen an increased enrollment across the community college system. So graduation rate, enrollment. There are industries that don't require, I'm not saying they don't need, they don't require further education and training to be a part of those industries. Student debt. And you know, I think as community college, our affordability is incredible. And I think we've paid attention to that metric quite a bit, the student debt. We are very intentional about reducing the amount of debt students have to take with them when they leave our institutions. But that is a big concern. The student loan bubble is like close to, it's there. There are a lot of folks in my generation and afterwards who have quite a bit of student loan debt, and their earning potential isn't aligning. He's wondering if the public even considers community colleges as part of higher education. Absolutely. Underemployment, I mean, that's one data point to look at or to ask your campuses about. This idea of post-graduation success and ensuring that students are earning, and House Bill 8 is part of this. Credentials are of value, right? That lead to upward mobility. And to your point, training in welding, that welding certificate, maybe all they need. They may not need the bachelor's degree in order to have the better life that they're seeking. Yes, sir.
You have to look at that data and then respond to that. And if there are programs that, you know, are we actually assessing programs appropriately and in a timely fashion? And I think that's why the public thinks all my students, my children are going to college, they're getting the debt, but they're not employable. So it's our responsibility to monitor that. And when we don't see results that provide the students success in employment, then we got to do something about that. And I don't think we've been quick enough to that.
Oh, absolutely. So program portfolios, how often does your institution have program portfolio reviews? And those reviews should be connected to several data points: enrollment, productive persistence, completion, and also gainful employment or transfer, depending on what the students go. And even if they transfer, what are the outcomes after they earn that bachelor's degree? So I think you're spot on. Many institutions, we've done program reviews maybe every 2 or 3 years. We rotate it depending on how many programs we have. But we're transitioning to an annual program review. We're doing it every year because we need to know that the outcomes for our students align with the industry every year. And that doesn't mean we do the big, long process, because we can get real processy. especially in institutional research. But first glance, you're good. But if there are questionable outcomes in terms of earnings and labor market intelligence, or if there's some productive persistence or transfer issues when it comes to your program, then we're going to do a deeper dive and create a plan to improve the outcomes.
I think in relation to your question back about the 36%, I think two of the things that concern me the most is that we as institutions don't really believe the value we are. I think we have a failure to recognize and carry the mantra of how important we are. And then when that be the case, we also fail to communicate to the world what we really do. I think we've just failed to sell our ware. And so I think those are two of the main reasons that we're not appreciated and we're not respected the way that we should. And so we really encourage, I know as a board member of CATT, one of our goals is to encourage all of our members to feel better about themselves, talk more about what they do. We really are trying to do that because I think that's our problem.
Yeah, there's this perception of, and I had this, I didn't attend a community college when I graduated high school, and there was a community college in my community, but I was too smart for the community college. I was like a snob at that. I mean, I've gotten better over time. I hope. But with community colleges, my brothers had gone to the community college, and in the high schools, they were like, you're way too smart to go to a community college. And that message is pervasive still in our high schools, in our communities. And so you're right. We have to understand the value that we bring. I started to do community college research before I started to work in the community college. And once I understood the mission of the community college, I was sold. That was another conversation I needed to have, because we make the greatest impact on the lives of students in our community. And our students are 90% of the time staying in our community. So we have to feel that, because you're advocates, right, in your communities. And so when somebody's saying, well, Texas Tech, so we're right between Texas Tech, OC, and Amarillo. Texas Tech is right in, I can go to Texas Tech. Well, why not go to Amarillo? Top community college in the country. Why not go to Odessa College? Great institution, same education. And so we have to believe that in order to show up in that way for our community.
I think the other piece is relevance in our curriculum. I think that we don't keep up with it. Change is very difficult in higher education. We're built from the ground up to resist the change, but with everything happening in technology, those forces are shifting us into directions that we hadn't anticipated. And I think that the resistance to change, particularly in our curriculum, is going to impact institutions across the board.
Why aren't we leading the conversations on AI? Right? Our students don't know what that is. They don't know how to use it right or how to use it wrong. But we can be teaching them how to properly use the Chat GPT of the world. I saw this article called Cheat GPT. Did y'all see the article? It was just talking about some of the positive ways it can be used. But you're right. We've become teaching institutions, which are great because we connect with the students, we teach well, but we also need to be on the cutting edge when it comes to curriculum. And so that's something we can do. I think I saw a hand.
I was just going to say that in order to serve our student, or to Cliff's point about kind of marketing what we do, I think we need to blur the lines between secondary and post-secondary. And by that, I mean, as a high school principal of a career academy, Amarillo College teaches at my location, and we send students to their location at the same time. We have co-locations where we teach. And so our students sometimes they don't even know there is this false line of where I end my education, because truly, does education ever end? We teach about students needing to attain that skill of the next thing that you're going to do and building those credentials of value. So we just blur the lines. We have students in high school. That's where we can make a lot of hay, is going into the high schools, showing what we can do and getting students attracted that way. And whether they need to go on to a university or not, that's beside the point. Right now, we're just educating them to go where they want to go. And if we can prove that community college is that place, which it is, then all the better.
Absolutely.
In high school, he understands the bridge and where it goes. I know in Houston, maybe this happens in other communities. We have issues with the high schools because the counselors are telling their students, you need to go to 4-year schools. You don't need to go to 2-year school. And I'm of an age when I realize now, I mean, when I graduated high school, late 70s, you could do something if your high school education was all you had. You can't do that today. There are no jobs that a high school diploma is going to delineate you from somebody else. I run a manufacturing company, and if we hire the lower end scale folks, frankly, to me, it wouldn't matter if they had a high school degree or not. At that point, what's going to matter to me is if they have some technical training, and the focus ought to be, we need to integrate with our upstream partners and have the students realize that 12th grade diploma is that's an incomplete in your education. You're not finished there. Now you can go to the military, you can go to 4-year school or a community college or a trade school, but you have to do something, because the high school diploma itself is just it's like a pit stop. It's not a finality, and it's really changed. And I think if we convince communities of that maybe we'll get a lot more buy-in, because that's where we're losing a lot of folks. And that's the area we focus on. I mean, if there's students that are coming out of high school and they're going straight to 4 years, I mean, we can offer ancillary classes in the summers for them, but that's not our focus. Our focus is to scoop up a lot of the capital that's not going to college and not doing things. And that's where we need to focus. And the upstream connection is key.
How many of us offer training to the high school counselors? Because that messaging is so important. And we have to teach them how to include our community colleges in that message. And you know what we show up with? Data. We show up with data, and we tell them how we serve the students. We tell them how much money they will save. We tell them the one-on-one relationships they'll build with our team. And then one thing that we're doing now at Odessa College, we're working with them on the message between how do you promote Odessa College and UT of the Permian Basin. I'm not asking you to do either or. I'm asking you to help the students go to college and let them know what their opportunities and options are at the community college as well as the university.
No, I was gonna, to your point earlier about trying to convince public good of higher ed and see us even as higher ed. To Jay's point, this is more of a question. By blurring the lines between that technical program at a high school and the community college, have we blurred the lines of being seen as a higher ed as the culture defines it? We still define that as a university. You pack up your bags, you go down away from mom and dad, and you live in a dorm. And so I think that's interesting. To the point of the counselors, though, real quickly, we've even gone so far as to try to incentivize by paying those high school counselors to talk about no one else but us, and it still doesn't work. That's the irony. And we show the data. Your students aren't going to the University of North Texas. Your students aren't going to Texas Tech. 90% of your students are going to NCTC, the community college, and they just don't believe the data. How do we? No, they can't be doing that. They're all Aggie bound. No, they're not. I'm afraid not.
Very good question. And I think we can work together to come up with a solution that might work. And I know you guys are working with economic mobility systems as well with the Promise. We are too. We're releasing our Wrangler Promise in 2024. And so we have to Jay's point, fully integrate with the high schools. We have conversations with our high school partners all the time. And then we need to have position to position conversations. And you can promote North Texas. I earned my PhD from North Texas. I will promote them. But I also want to do what's best for my student. And I know by going to NCTC and then transferring to UNT, earning that degree, that'll give them the best opportunity for upward mobility.
I think the other piece I wanted to dovetail into the marketing comment, because we've seen what's been happening over the last 10 years. Community colleges have lost about 37% of that enrollment over 10-year period. And the slide is barely starting to kind of level off. But universities have not seen that, particularly regional universities have not seen that slide. They've seen the inverse. And the reason is because they have gotten masterful at marketing, at customer service. We need to take some of those pages out of that playbook to ensure that we're providing the same level of service. Because if anybody's ever called Western Governors, all you got to do is email them once or call them once, and they're going to hound you until you sign up for their classes. So I'm not saying that's the best model, but they are using a lot of strategies that are designed to bring that pipeline in that the colleges are simply not following up with.
I agree. And as the board, are we asking the questions to our college leaders? How much do we have in the marketing budget? Like, is that an afterthought? Oh, we need to do a little bit of marketing. Let's add this on the end, right? Because Western Governors, I see them everywhere. I see University of Texas Arlington's nursing program. Has anybody not seen their advertising? Like, every time I log in to go to a website, to go to Amazon, I see that nursing program advertising pop up. What are they doing? And how can we connect with them to understand what they're doing? And then assign the right amount of funds where we're focusing on, like, that one phone call. Is that what it takes at your community college? Or are they calling multiple times? Or is somebody not picking up the phone? Because that all matters, especially when there's a student and a parent who's like, well, I'm not college material anyway. They're saying I'm good enough to go to UNT, but I haven't heard anything from the community college. Any other comments about?
So I was just going to add a couple of thoughts. One, congratulations. And I think embracing what House Bill 8 represents, at least the accountability side of it to public officials, whether that data gets back to the everyday student or the voter or future potential student is a whole other question. But this is a fundamental departure from other higher education institutions in the way that, I think they perceive, kind of their level of accountability to students. And I think that's promising. One other thought, I can't remember who said it, about, kind of community college being perceived as a lesser option. One of our digital communication interns is a graduate of El Paso Community College. And she wrote an op-ed way back at the beginning of the commission's work, talking about her own internal belief that was the case. But having experienced otherwise, she's now a champion of El Paso Community College. When their incoming students were at orientation a few weeks ago, she didn't know this. Her younger brother is enrolled there, and they passed out her op-ed, right? To say you made the right choice, right? And so I just think in terms of messaging and public confidence, I know we're talking about data, but the messenger also matters. And students can be a really powerful messenger to peers, because who do they believe? Are they going to believe the people in this room? Are they necessarily going to pay attention and believe the data? Or do they need to see someone who looks like them, who reflects their experience, who's saying, you can trust this, you can believe in the promise that's being made here? So I think the voice of students is critically important in that.
Absolutely. That's a wonderful point. And so the question to ask your colleges is, who are the student champions or the alumni champions? At OC, we have Positively OC presidential scholars who are the champions for what we do. And they speak directly student to student. on how they've been able to be successful. And so if you don't have the student champions, because they can speak the data too, because we train them. We train them to talk about OC. We show them the numbers. They're advocates for our campus. And so that's a good question. If your campus doesn't have a specific group of students and alumni who are champions for messaging the promise that we deliver to students.
From my perspective, the question right there, percentage of the public that has confidence in higher ed. And again, trying to blur the lines. I think you should blur the lines across the whole spectrum. I think the reality is the question should be asked is, including to the parents, is who believes in continuing education after high school? Again, the percentage is going to go way up. They'll go up in the high 80s or 90s because everybody believes that you have to embrace or you have to encourage students to look at continuing education, whether it be academics or whether it be skill sets types of training. But again, I'm going to say the biggest gap that I think community colleges fill is those students that can't afford in terms of affordability, the economically disadvantaged students that don't have an option to go to university. I'm not talking about the high flyers, the stars. I'm talking about on the masses of the economically disadvantaged students. And their only option is to go to community college or vocational college. And it's not one of those things where you have the luxury or the benefit of saying, oh, well, we're university and we offer more, or we're community college and we offer more than vocational schools. At the end of the day, our job in the educational system is to see how can we fill the gaps? How do we keep the students that are not that are not even staying engaged in middle school, junior high school? How do you keep them engaged so they prepare themselves for either continuing education in the skills area or applied science areas, or going on to college? Because they are disconnecting after elementary school, and we're losing a huge amount of those students that aren't ready for college. We use so many of our resources to be able to do the leveling, to provide the leveling classes so they get to community work when they should be doing that in their public high school system. The House Bill 8 is all about looking to see what are we going to do to get our students prepared for the workforce, and how are we going to increase the number of students we have in our workforce. And again, we have to look at the whole picture.
So if we focus on 2 data points when we're thinking about the message of what we're delivering as community college, if we focused on our economically disadvantaged students, that's a data point in our community we can pull, right? If we focus on the academically disadvantaged student, that's another data point. Both those data points, you get extra weights in House Bill 8. If you focus on those 2, could we increase our enrollment, persistence, and completion and labor market outcomes by just focusing on those 2 data points? We have to carve out these spaces for ourselves. Also, another part of House Bill 8 is co-enrollment. So we're talking about blurring the lines between high school and community college, but we're being encouraged with funding to blur the lines between community colleges and universities. We have an exemplar in our state, Blinn College and A&M. They are leaders in co-enrollment. And so how can we blur the lines going upstream with our universities, just focusing on those 2 data points? I don't think anyone at the universities can say, we don't want the students in our community to save money, because that's what we have to offer as a community college.
Well, I just wanted to start by saying a data point. When high school was enough to make a good living, 1/3 of the country had a high school diploma or higher. And so back then that was college. You know, the percentage of the population who had a high school education is the percentage that has a bachelor's degree now. And so most people have a college education now. And so our job is to get them the technical skills so they can still be competitive, because it's assumed it's not valuable. And so I think one of the things we've noticed is there's a lot of things that we do. We're in the middle of a strategic plan, and our outside partners roundtable, 3/4 of the things that people suggested were things that we already do. Because we haven't told our story, because I think we've internalized in our own marketing and how we talk that we are somehow less than, and we don't say, you know, we are an alternative that is just as valuable. We are less expensive because we have other funding sources, not because our education is of a lesser quality, and that we can deliver our education in high schools because we focus on teaching rather than research and having massive classes. And so we can give people who need extra help, who aren't prepared to survive if they're in a freshman year 600-person survey course, we can give them the one-on-one treatment that they need in order to succeed. And I think telling that story both to ourselves and to our communities, I'm fascinated as a new regent by how many alumni our school has in our community and how little expression of that there is in our community. You know, if you go to College Station, that town is that university. And all of us have similar proportions of our communities or even larger that are our alumni, but we don't have those public expressions of, I went to this school and I'm proud of it. You know, I went to this school and I'm a business owner. I went to this school and I'm a community leader. And I think that is where a lot of it starts, is just getting people to say, yes, I'm proud of the education I got and it has had me be successful.
How do we deploy people to be community messengers for us? How many of you guys are in the churches, connecting with the churches? Like, maybe you have an employee who works there, or maybe there's some students or some interns you can hire, like the connecting in a very integrated and deep way with the local community.
I wanted to go back to his point about talking about the disadvantaged, those that are disadvantaged students. That starts with our disadvantaged families. We have to educate them about the value of an education. Many of them don't want their child, they want them to finish high school and get on to work because they need them to work. They need them at home, they got to pay the bills, they got to buy groceries, take care of their children. Reach those caretakers, parents, and educate them about the value that higher ed. Just a few certificates started at high school. Their child have better job that, and that's where I think that's more of those that many of our it's a privilege because they don't understand that it's affordable. That's
And I think this work that we're doing with Texas Pathways on the credential mapping to embed those micro credentials is part of that too. Because same in Odessa, you can go into the oil field and make some good money. You can make some good money until you get hurt, right? Or till there's a bust, which is often. So educating them on those micro credentials that they can earn along the way. So the work that we're getting ready to do with Texas Pathways is really great work. Yes, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Public has lost confidence in higher education. I guess that's how you started this conversation. And I probably wouldn't have said what I'm about to say 10, 15 years ago, because I came from, before I was a trustee, I was at a health science center, higher education in health science, where you get plenty of students for every position and they all get jobs. They have more jobs when they graduate. They have plenty of jobs. But my granddaughter in the last 3 weeks have me thinking about another data point. I think we do this, but I'm not sure we do it very well enough. A data point on what the dollar value is of what all the public pays for our kids to go from high school to our community colleges on to another university and get a job. My granddaughter was in a big beef with her mother just 2 weeks ago because she's doing these things online and she makes $800 a month and she's in the 10th grade. And she's going to go from that, probably making more than that. And she does absolutely nothing to make those $800 a month for a 10th grader. And her mother only gives her 10%. And for me, who have come from higher education, is always talking about colleges and all these kind of things, we don't have a good enough data point to convince the public that the dollar value is worth it, because I have a 10th grader granddaughter that can make more money than her husband is a physician right there. And I know her husband is a physician because I knew him when he was a student. So that's the data point that I think we need to do more with is we've got great data points on entry, follow-up, you know, how well students are doing and all of that, because that's how most of us are getting our money. That's a data point that I think we need to do more with and have that so that it can be understood by the public who pays for these higher educations.
Oh, yeah. The credential value conversation. My question is, and I've been asking this question, and maybe you guys are already here. Why are we in the influencer space? They need training. I would guess that your granddaughter does something around influencers, Stitch, or something. But why aren't we in that space providing workforce training for those individuals who are choosing those careers? Have we considered it? Do we have an influencer certificate? Because they have to know how to calculate how much Instagram or Snapchat is or YouTube is going to pay them. They need some business savviness. They need to know when to market and how to market and who's their target. Any of us in that space yet offering that? And so those are, and you're right. Let's think about all of these new careers that exist and ways in which we can make money that didn't exist 10 years ago. We are workforce trainers. We provide that to our community. How do we connect with the jobs that they're going into?
We actually on our campus have influencers that go to our campus, and our marketing team is really strategic about realizing, oh man, that person has 36,000 followers on Instagram, and then they become part-time workers with us and they carry the message. And that's a really easy and simple way to do that. But of course, they have to be students on your campus. And then also going back to the economically disadvantaged, again, when we talk about blurring lines, like Jay mentioned, and also with families, you know, I think a lot of times we are marketing to the student. And I don't know about y'all, but when you were 15 years old, 16 years old, 17 years old, would you have been thinking about your future on your own and saying, oh, I'm going to save my parents lots of money if I sign up for dual enrollment in CTE? No, we were just taking our parents' money, right? So I think it is super valuable that we, one, bring in families, especially first generation families. You will never meet any family that doesn't want to save money. It doesn't matter how much they make. And so I think, one, we need to start talking to families 7th grade year, 8th grade year, because mijo and mija are going to start making these decisions with House Bill 5. And they are making decisions freshman year that could save their families $27,000, right? I am super proud that we did that with our son. And over the summer, he came back to our community college. I would have paid almost $2,000 for the same course that he was very successful taking it at our community college. So we need to bring in families. And last that I would say with that is, I was super proud and emotional because one of the publications locally in the Valley did a story on a mom and a dad and a daughter that all graduated from STC at the same time, and they influenced each other. How beautiful is that, that we're able to educate? And what if the parent session that we have on these middle school or high school campuses, what if we are just talking to the parent for the student, but then the mom is saying, well, I can get that 6-month certificate, and they're telling me it's only going to be that much. And then all of a sudden you have 2 generations coming up. I think that would be super beautiful.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things, think about the promise. I know in Dallas, there's a parent promise as well, because we're training 2 generations at a time. But what's the data point we track when it comes to families? Because you're right. We train the mother, we get them educated. Are we tracking that data on how we're connecting with families? Because that's a key data point. That's a new data point, but that's a key data point in serving the students in which we serve. I think I'll take one more question, and we're going to have to get off this slide at some point. Well, we'll
So
take one
Doc,
more.
just what I wanted to do is not just a question, but I think there's something really significant in this data point, is that this is the largest drop in public confidence in higher education in history, and it is the fastest drop. So I think that it behooves every leader, every board member, every CEO, everybody who works in this space to understand what's happening here with the dynamics. I think the other piece is, as we talk about data, the last thing I would say to this is that we need to get better at predictive analytics, not just using dead data to try to predict the future with things that have already passed. So I think that there are tools there that we need to start embracing. But this is really significant in terms of where the public confidence is at, because it's the biggest and fastest drop ever.
Agreed. And that's why I included it. We look at this data point often, and but yeah, it's just massive. And the board, you're our community advocates. The folks in your communities make up this data point. And so understanding why there's this biggest and fastest drop, but also what are some things that we can do to show that we're relevant? How do we connect with the families? We're adding new data points all the time. 2 things that big takeaways. That family data point is a big one. If your college isn't tracking family engagement and connecting that with who shows up on your campus, also the data point to really think about the jobs that don't require training right now. That's another data point. Like this influencer space, social media space, these jobs that aren't the traditional jobs, and then connecting that with your program portfolio. So do you need an associate's that leads to an English transfer degree? I like English. I mean, I think it's great. But how many students do we have? And then of those students, how many students are transferring? And then how many students are earning that bachelor's degree? And then how many students are going into the workforce? So those conversations, because if you're going to add a program, think about those programs that you might need to sunset. Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to go back to the conversation about families. I'm very pleased and proud of what we're doing at Temple College about bringing families on campus. But is there a college here that is doing something unique that we could build on that they'd like to share, that has been successful and is, I see you.
Board president, our board, our president of the college, our Dr. Minita Ramirez, she went in and took the initiative. I believe it was funding from her HERF money. She went ahead and she implemented a system to be able to Laredo College. Yeah, she went ahead and she implemented a system to be able to attract students back into campus by having a card and having them give them a meal plan. So the money that was left over from the state that was given to us, she went ahead and she implemented a system to be able to feed our students. If they were full-time, they were giving a card and they could go to the food court and they could go ahead and eat. So that was a really good system. If I'm going to allow her to speak a little bit more on that.
So one of the things that we take for granted, but is a real reality for especially community college students. When you when students are, especially of low socioeconomic backgrounds, they're used to eating at school. At 18, they time out of WIC or food stamps or everything else. And they also no longer have health care. And so I don't know that we spend a lot of time thinking about the whole student. And so we were able to implement using, and we got an extension of money that hadn't been spent during CARES. And we've been able to now, we're in the second year of this, to feed our students. We give them an allocation of funding for the day. So technically they can have 2 meals on campus, but they must be enrolled full-time. And if they're fully online, they don't get the meal plan. They've got to have at least 1 class on campus. And they're, so that we begin to re-engage them into the college community. And some are still having problems with that. And so we saw literally from one day to the next, we saw a huge increase in just cars in the parking lots, but really students hanging around and now coming to tutoring because they could come and eat, and making different arrangements for their work schedules. And so, but the mere fact that we were able to provide that, we also saw an increase in semester credit hour enrollment because they had to be enrolled full-time. They took that 1 extra class or the 2 extra classes so that they could eat on campus. It made a huge difference.
Yeah, we're doing something similar at OC and including our online students, 1 meal a day, to bring them to campus. We haven't done the full-time incentive, so that's interesting to hear. But programs like that, because we're in the basic needs business too as well, right? So we're looking at housing insecurities, we're looking at food insecurities, and so that's a great example for supporting families and tracking that data point. Anything else? I want to make sure we have this conversation, and there's some other slides, and we'll get to the community vibrancy framework and all of that. But I think this is really good discussion around how do we move forward and think about different data points that we haven't thought about before.
Thank you. Looking at the comment on the slide, I have to think that it skews people. The response that you see reported to me coming from a community college, I see that as skewed data because all I hear in the news is about student debt and the magnitude of student debt as far as balances are 4-year schools. Now, if you add up all the money, there's a lot of nickels and dimes that add up to a whole bunch of community college students. But you hear in the news debt that they can't pay back. They're in jobs that they can't pay it back, or they don't have a job, or they didn't finish. And when that's in the news all the time, what do you expect to see? This is a response. But to me, that issue is tied a lot more to 4-year schools. And so I all the comments here today are fantastic. I think I think the broadband is a little too broad almost. We want to narrow down the discussion because there's a lot of things. We talk about educating families. We do that at HCC. I talk to the folks on the campuses and they tell me, trustee, when we bring a student in from high school, we bring the parents in, much better response because the parents have to get the buy-in. And oftentimes, I heard about the culture of students needing to go to work and they can't get an education because the culture says you're 18, you got to get a job, you got to bring money into the family. And we address that. It's important. And so I think the people on the ground see the issues. We opened a food pantry, and I kept angling our folks to look to Amarillo College as a model because I remember seeing theirs, and we've just opened one. And so, yeah, all these things matter to connect to the students. But I think that may be a little skewed because it's all about the student debt, and that's a big thing. I've gone to Washington. I've told people the government needs to get out of the student loan business. They need to be in the student grant business because it's like family. When you don't loan a family member money, because then how's that conversation go at every holiday? You just give them the money and you just move on. You either can afford it or you can't. And that's how you do it. but that's another discussion. Thank you.
There is a point in the community college history where we weren't watching the student loan debt closely. Do you remember that? Because there are students who've gone to the community college only and they have a debt bill. So that's a data point that you want to go back to your college and check. How many students do we have defaulting in student loans? What's the average amount of student loan that we award to students? And then disaggregate that by economically disadvantaged students, academically disadvantaged students to make sure. The second point, we've been talking about parents. Who has a parent engagement office? Anybody? Anybody have, well, I'll ask a different way. Who is responsible for parent engagement at your campus? Do you have someone? Because we do know the students we're serving is this 2-generation education system. Young ladies.
I'm a community college student. My name is Montoya. I attended Lone Star College, University Park in Houston, Texas. And so I hear you speak about like the food on campus, and I was previously in foster care and I aged out and I continued going to campus. But I noticed, like, until I advocated for like other foster youth transitioning out of foster care, about like the food banks. What do y'all do like for as transportation? Because I hear you have like food on campus and stuff, but a lot of times like we run into issues through at the middle semester, and we may lose our job, or we're short a check, whatever. So what about like transportation? Do y'all have like bus cards, or what are so that we don't end up not showing up for class? So
Thank you. Very excellent questions. I'm gonna let the colleagues in the room answer this. We'll start here and then I see you over here.
I like having a soundtrack when I talk. No, one of the things that the Education Foundation does with Alvin Community College is have a fund available for students who, the way it's described is one flat tire away from quitting. Because if they get a flat tire, they can't make it. They don't necessarily have the money to get that tire fixed. And so it's kind of a nebulous thing out there, but the Education Foundation does a really good job of reaching out to the student population, let them know, hey, besides the fact that we're putting together a food bank, besides the fact that we have these other resources, the things you would not think of when you get a flat tire, when groceries, there are things that Alvin Community College cannot do by itself or under the purview of what the college does, but the Education Foundation has a little bit more latitude in what it can do, and getting that word out is very important. I think helpful for students to know what is possible to continue their education and not just, I don't want to say give up, but sometimes you just kind of hit that breaking point and you don't know what else to do. So the Education Foundation can be a real resource. And then real quick, also the school district in our area does a thing called a second chance day. And what they do is they find all the students who dropped out in the past year, and they basically get a whole group of people, business leaders, ACC, Alvin ISD, and we go around and visit with the people and the parents, or the students and the parents who have dropped out. And that's a real eye-opening experience for everyone who's involved, but also it helps the student understand that there's resources after college or after high school. If they come back to school, they get the GED, they get the high school diploma, whatever it may be, that there's a resource there in Alvin Community College to continue their education. Because again, sometimes they just don't see the light at the end of the tunnel, and they think they're done. They don't know that there's resources out there to help them jumpstart a new life. And it's such a local resource. They don't have to go off to Houston. They don't have to go off somewhere to a 4-year college. So if their school district's not doing something like that in the area, it's a great opportunity to reach out.
On ours, our foundation does emergency grants for students to fix their vehicle. Our local transit authority, your student ID is your bus pass, so you don't have to pay for it. we've kind of taken the next step from that, because, we did the math on HB8 and basically we made dual credit free. But one of the issues on doing that is you still have the capability of high school students to be able to access our campuses for the courses that they can't take on campus. And so we've started talking to the transit authority about working out fixed route service between different high school campuses and our campuses. So those students can get there and back if they don't have their own vehicle, which is more likely if they're educationally or disadvantaged. And so, yeah, that's an incredibly important part of it. And it's one of the things that we struggle with on online versus in person, is that online gives a lot of flexibility to people with work or family commitments, but our data is the completion isn't as good and the service kind of quality level isn't as good. And so we kind of have this battle, I guess, on, do we really encourage online, or do we encourage people to be in person, because in person's better, but access is easier online.
I can,
Well, I think we need a break.
but-
So we're
I
gonna
can-
take 5 minutes.
I can tell you before we go that in Dallas, we're fortunate to have mass transit. So
Mhm.
our tuition includes a free DART pass for every student.
Oh,
So the
awesome.
transportation for that, we're mass transit, even though it doesn't go everywhere, it's a DART pass, but we also have a fund that for the broken vehicle and the flat tire, we also address that as well, because that's a situation, but we're fortunate to have the transportation opportunity.
Oh, absolutely. So we'll come back at 10:20, take a coffee break or restrooms or right outside to the right. Okay, did everyone get some water and coffee? So we're gonna continue the discussion. So we're gonna continue the discussion. we've had several wonderful sidebars. We want to bring it back in. I know. So we had a interesting discussion during the break, and one of the trustees from Brazos Sport asked if we can continue the discussion around families and how we can connect with families, because that's an interesting data point that we haven't tracked. And I asked the question, is anyone tracking the family data, how we're connecting and how that's turning into enrollments and completion and workforce success? And so I asked that question again, is anyone tracking that data? Yes, sir.
I thought it was interesting that we had this conversation about like parent and family engagement, because probably about a quarter of your students are parents. And so that you have a direct line, not to all families, but to a lot of families that have either young children or children who are getting closer to making that decision about, you know, if they're high school age, what they're going to do next. So there's a direct line there. And to your question about data, this was one of the probably less well understood or attention grabbing policy changes, but that's happening now through state law. House Bill 1361. A lot of your institutions may already be doing this, but the state is going to start to collect and report who are your parenting students, what do you know about their demographics and their outcomes. So again, that's not the full slice of the pie, but a pretty big chunk of it.
And I'm glad you mentioned that, because I was going to mention that as well. We've been having conversations about how are we tracking the student parent data? Like, how do we know at a systemic level the number of students who are parents? And so I think that's a question to have, a conversation to have with the leadership on your campus. And we certainly are, because that's not traditionally a question that's on Apply Texas or an admissions application. But we do need that data in order to comply with the new legislation around reporting and priority registration for student parents. So who's anybody doing that well, tracking their student parents, tracking that metrics, but also getting back to the family conversation too, because I think that's probably the on the horizon with what we need to do in terms of connecting with folks who are first generation and who's from some of our rural areas and low socioeconomic areas.
We ask our students if they're parents. And so we know from our demographic data that our typical student is a 27-year-old Hispanic woman who is a single mother who works a full-time job. And as a result of that, childcare is a top 1 or 2 issue for our students on being able to attend class and complete a degree. And so we've been looking at ideas. I don't think we really have anything yet, but it's up there. Same with transportation and affordability as a challenge for our students on being able to get to completion.
Yeah, childcare is expensive to offer. Are you guys collecting that data every year? Through what mean? How are you collecting that data?
I think we get it from them when they register, and then we also include questions like that whenever we do a student survey or anything like that, because it's such a big issue that we kind of have to track it, but we haven't figured out a way to really help with it.
Yeah,
Because
automate it and make it systemic, because also if you receive Perkins funding, you have to report that number every semester as well.
I wanted to share ideas on how to engage the families in the ISDs. We at the college are having an event on Monday for Hispanic Heritage Month. And so the ISDs in our city, they have folkloric dancing groups. And so they're coming to the campus. So hosting events for the ISD and bringing those children brings the families and exposes the college to these parents that didn't know we were there. So I think those
Are they like signing in? Are you tracking the attendance? Because we have community events like that. We were just talking about how do we track who comes to our downtown campus? And we have a splash pad. We have this beautiful space that the community is using. But how do we leverage that? Are you tracking the?
I know that they plan to have the college has some of the events, some of their offices will be there facilitating, so they will have sign-in for tracking parents.
Very good. Anyone else in this family, this 2-generational approach or 3-generational approach to education, have some innovative ways in which we connect with families and we track data points related to our outreach and connections with families?
Yeah, we have at one of our campuses, we have, and I know many of you do this as well. We have a daycare, kindergarten really is what it is. It's a pre-K3, pre-K4. And it really does help our students. The only thing they have to commit to is either the entire morning or the entire afternoon and, or all day. They can't just drop off the child for an hour and then pick them up and go. And so ideally we're using it part of our early childhood development program. So
so you guys don't do the drop-in childcare?
Not right now. We've talked about that and we're talking about opening up a separate just daycare, because this is really it's accredited for kindergarten, and so it's very hard for those that are using the Camilo Prada Early Childhood Center, because we're tracking those students and their development, and it's a longitudinal study that we're doing to see, do they come back to the college? Do they go to college? Do they eventually graduate for with a degree somewhere? And so ideally we don't want that. We don't want to taint the data there, because we do have a control group already and an active group. And so, so no, but
because we've talked about that as well, because we have a daycare on campus and it's accredited TWC. But the hard part is figuring out the drop-in, right? That student parent who needs to come in for a class for an hour and a half. They don't have childcare for their son or daughter, and having a opportunity for them.
And the other thing is the insurance on that is,
oh yes,
I don't know if anybody saw a huge increase in insurances, but whoa.
Yes, the cost, it is in the child care industry is very close to cost prohibitive. We're thankful that our board members allow us to keep our daycare or child care center on campus, but we're losing money.
Yeah, at Dallas College, we were very blessed this year to be awarded a grant from the Bezo Corporation, the foundation. We opened 2 separate Bezo operations on 2 of our campuses. And it's a Montessori program, and they were really targeting a lot of the homeless. That was one of their primary concerns, is the children of homeless people. And they provide pickup. They pick up the kids. They feed the kids 3 meals a day. It's a phenomenal program of what they're doing. So I don't know how far that's spreading around the state, but we opened up 2 of those campuses this year. And they've been absolute successes.
Very good. We'll have to stay tuned and look at that model.
So on the discussion concerning how are you approaching the parents, what we do at Odessa College is certain times we'll have events on the on parks, and we'll have events for for children, not necessarily for the students. And then there'll be different sites that you can sign up, and you can where they ask you to come in and sign, and then you can they'll give them things, but then that way they can go back and re-engage the parents as well as the potential students, because a lot of times who shows up, because there is food and there is drink, that they're children, so that would be junior high school age kids, smaller age kids, but they're getting exposed to what Odessa College has to offer.
And to add to Dr. Deaver's comment, we have what we call invasions, where we invade elementary school and middle school, and the whole data point is to increase college going culture. And so we go in, we have our fire department and our fire students, we do activities. We allow the teachers to take that day off, and we take over the classes and get connected with the students. But we really haven't connected it to the yield or the conversion rate, right? So that's the data point that I'm taking away to see how many of those students who participate at those schools are converted to Odessa College students. Any other thoughts or comments? Okay, so as we continue, and you guys, this is just some of the things that that's connected to the public confidence metrics that we mentioned. Of course, student share of the cost, student loans, we talked all about this, workforce outcomes, and like, what's the true return on investment? And then, is the opportunity cost worth it for students and families? Because for students, they're caring for their family, especially in some communities. They have a responsibility at home to take care of. So valid concerns with outcomes and relevancy. And so looking at graduation, which we talked about that, transferability, that's courses, making sure all of our courses are applying at our primary transfer partners. And I think the House Bill 8 co-enrollment requirement or incentive will help us do that a lot better. So reframing college completion to as momentum towards economic and social mobility, because we've had several iterations of a community college, right? So we were just access, right? Get everybody in. Like, we want to get folks in. We've shifted to completion, and now we're shifting to return on investment, mobility, credentials of values. So what the Aspen Institute is calling, and there are a few community colleges that are part of the work that the Aspen Institute is doing, called Unlocking Opportunity, and looking at where we're shifting, the role of community college shifting to community college 3.0. So 1.0 is the access, right? We were at some point, and that's how we were funded. Contact hour funding is enrollment. So that's how we've been funded, and Texas has made a very scaled shift to performance tier funding. One of the, if not the first state in the country to do so. And then 2.0, we moved to a success points model. That a little bit of our funding came from those success points, so momentum and completion. And now what we're moving into is community college 3.0, which is looking at post-graduation success. Looking at, are students prepared for what comes next? And that's our business. At some point, when we were in the access era, we were like, well, they don't complete, that's on them. And then we moved to the completion by design, the completion agenda. And now we're really interested in, what do they do? Are they getting good jobs? Or I would even say good careers. if they're an English major, which is great. I had a conversation. We need English teachers. We need people to earn degrees in English, but are all their credits transferring and applying? And when that English major shows up, do they get that 4-year plan? Are they getting all the courses and advisement that they need to earn a bachelor's? Because we know they need that bachelor's degree. Psychology as well. Are they getting a 5-year plan that goes to social work or a master's degree in psychology when they show up on the community college campus? And then looking at the equity and transfer and workforce outcomes. So investing in upward mobility is community building work. And I know this group know that. There we go. We've had that conversation. I think everyone in this room realizes the work that you do, the decisions that you make for your college is community building work for your service area. So the Post-Secondary Value Commission, we started this conversation thinking about public confidence, but we got into this conversation about how do we value the community college? And how do we market the community college? And how do we talk about the community college's advantages for students in our area? What's our college going rate? Does everybody know their college going rate in their area? How do we increase that? Because when we do, we have a stronger economy. We have more taxpayers, a diverse and very prepared workforce. We have a healthier populace. And then, well, the housing market is kind of out of control right now. But the higher education you have, a credential value, the more likely you are to be a homeowner and contribute to your local economy and tax base. So as we think about community colleges as hubs or engines for this community vibrancy framework, we're envisioning a brighter future. And we've talked about this, individuals, also families. And in this conversation today, the individuals and the families, that's a blurred line, especially for a lot of our populations and communities. So go back one. I'm not sure about the right spot. There we go. So at the foundation of this is your college. There you go. Your college. And then individuals, families, and then the communities. If we're going to move from transactional, the people who show up and want to register for our classes, and many of us have done this work, to transformational, it starts. We have to position ourselves and take notes from our friends who are in Western governors. They figured out how to market or position Western governors as the online choice. How do we position ourselves as the economic mobility engines or the community vibrancy organizations in our area? So what is your college doing to center this work? I'm focusing on not getting them into college, not graduating them, but what they do afterwards. What are some innovative things that you guys are doing to focus on this community building work that we do in the community college sector? Anybody want to give 1 or 2 examples?
Actually, it's a question because I think that's very difficult to do. I think the gainful employment data is cumbersome and difficult to attain. And so I was going to ask you, what's Odessa you know, how do we get at the post-graduation data for employment, especially in areas where they're blurred? You're sitting in North Texas, there's 6 of us within a stone's throw. And so they may start 1 degree with us, and then they may move over to Dallas, and then they'll go over to Tarrant, and then they'll come back to Weatherford, and they may graduate ultimately at Grayson. And then we're trying to track that, and then we try to track their employment, and then they may live in Grayson and then ultimately work in Dallas.
Yeah.
Have
That's a
y'all
great
had,
question.
Have
It's
y'all
not-
had any success
Well,
there?
I'll tell you what we're doing. We haven't figured it out, but I'll tell you one of the things that we're doing is leveraging the data that the UT system has access to. They have access to, the coordinating board looks to the UT system to really look at that workforce gainful employment data. So we've had conversations with the UT system. We have Permian Basin. You guys have UT institutions that are primary transfer institution. And so we're working with them, data sharing, to get more of that information. But I have a question that I think this room can figure out. When I order something for my son from Amazon, it's there in 2 days, 1 day, depending on where you live. When they track that little toy like it's the most important thing in the world, do they not? That little table that costs $300, they just track it. I know where it is. I know that little precious table is at all time. It shows up. They have all the tools in it to put it together. Why haven't we figured that out in education? Why haven't we figured out how to track our students through these blurred lines that Jay mentioned? From high school to college, community college to university. Why haven't we figured that out? And I made an assumption that we haven't. Has anyone figured it out?
Okay. And it absolutely is necessary. And your point about Amazon is that they figured out how to do that. And we, as working with the legislature, working with each other, whatever, definitely need to come up with ideas centered around tracking.
And I would say that what we do and the people we serve is probably more important than that little table I'm buying, right? And even what I see with the FAST program that we're doing and how we're pulling the students who are enrolled with us and including their Texas ID number. The students already have a Texas ID number. Let's think about how to use it. And then at the state level, they're going to look and see who's EcoDisc. So how do we track our students? Because they do swirl. They're swirling all over the place. So yeah.
So in terms of income, what we did, Capital Idea was tracked through the Workforce Commission system, but it required us to have a release up front, and then things would change at the Workforce Commission and they'd sort of change their mind. We could access some years and have to fuss with them to get access the other years. So, but that, that system did work. It did yield results, and it showed, strong ROI, which was important for our funding.
Did you get student level data?
We got, individual level data.
Because that's what we need. I think the way we report it, we'll get a year out, but that student level data. And I know the UT system is collaborating with the organization to look at workforce outcomes by students. And so maybe that's something we could leverage at some point.
Yeah.
One of the things we do, and we work very closely with our local workforce office. We have people on their board, and then they have people on our specific program advisory committees. And when there's a lot of, they will do regular data analysis on job postings, and we use that to create new programs. And then the major employers who are hiring those people are on our advice, so it's kind of this triangle where we all try to share data. One of the problems is that the level of data that we can get from the state is terrible. And so we can't go back to the state and say,
yes, we did this program and these people went from being unemployed to making on average X because you won't give us the data even though you have it.
Yeah, I'll add to that a little bit. And I hope somebody's got a better idea and resource for us to utilize. But what we've done so far in collaborating with our ISD partners, we're able to say, okay, these students left the ISD, they came to Dallas College, and through the data agreement, data share agreement we have with TWC, where we can look at those students at the student level. We can see what industry they're in. We can't see their occupation, to your point about the holes in the TWC data. And also our contract with TWC prohibits us from sharing that data back to DISD. So there's some really strange barriers in the way, a lot of opportunity to
And I
make
know,
that system better.
yes, Ben, I know the Lightcast, if you guys use Lightcast for labor market data, which we use that, they do have a way to look at job analysis, but it's based on students who have LinkedIn profiles. So there's some limitations with that as well. And so there are pieces of data at the coordinating board at TWC with Lightcast and what they can pull from LinkedIn and some other websites. But a comprehensive approach to where our students had. So how do we measure this return on investment accurately, like with good data quality? And so maybe we put a group together and start thinking about and wrestling with that. Yes, sir.
My experience is with helping people find jobs on the other side, but we have access to some technology that reads the web, and AI has been getting really, really accurate, up to 80% accuracy right now about where they are, what job, what experience. I know for a fact I could search any college, any university and say, show me everybody that has a job that's from that university. I can search by years of experience. So having a way maybe to bring data back to connect to a database that you might have of students that have graduated and finding them by name or by graduation date is probably very possible with the web, World Wide Web. So we crawl like 5,000 websites, anything there's a footprint online, we pick it up. And so that's another way of actually finding it. And then we also do some programs with community colleges in California using apprenticeship programs where those are already known to be placed in a company. So you know that the tracking is after they get the degree or get the certification, they're actually placed for a year in a business. But some of those programs get more visibility, but just wanted to share some of that from a technology point of view.
Who are you with, sir?
I'm with FutureSolve. We're a vendor, a training provider with Dallas College. And so we work very closely with them.
Sounds good. So Jay is saying I have 5 minutes. Jay, I have 5 minutes. Okay. So go ahead, please.
Sorry, I just wanted to give you a student perspective. My name is Isabel Torres, and I graduated from ACC actually last year with my associates. But I had tried multiple times going through college, and when I first returned this last time, I was sponsored through TWC before I was able to transition through financial aid. But through Texas Workforce, what they actually do when you complete their program in a high demand job is part of the exit is to give a commitment that every 6 months they actually track us. So they follow up with us, see where we're working, seeing if our certification it has been, used. And so it was really neat because even after I finished the program, they made sure to have all of my updated information and then tracked it. And so even though I graduated for pharmacy technician, I loved ACC so much that I went into higher learning. So I did come out with a desired career.
not the one I went into, but enough to support our family. So
Excellent. Thank you for being here. Let's give our students a round of applause. Thank you. We're trying to solve these problems for you, you and your family and your future. So I'm going to show you guys quickly. And we've touched on probably every metrics that's in this community vibrancy framework. And it's really going beyond the access, the early momentum, the milestones. You'll get a copy of this presentation, so you'll get to see this. But it's really that last column, mobility and ROI. It's something that we're wrestling with, and that's some data points that we can all work together to figure out. How do we decrease the gaps in that workforce data to truly show that we are the upward mobility, social or economic engines within our community? So I'll open it up in my last minute for any final questions or comments.
So just one more thing in terms of demonstrating our ROI while we're waiting for the data systems to get in line. One of the things we also did samples and having third-party academic folks do a policy research paper or something that would track a group of students and would be fairly rigorous. And then we'd be able to demonstrate, if not for all students, for this sample representative of the group, a positive ROI. So
Very good. And so as many of those prototypes we can do, and then at some point, whenever we're ready to scale it. Okay. Well, thank you guys so much for your time, your comments, your questions. I've enjoyed the conversation.
Janice, thank you so much for leading us. This was a great way to start our conference today. I want to remind everyone that we will have lunch right back in here at 11:30. And then following that, we'll have our first opening plenary session. And let's give her another round of applause. And from Odessa College. Take a break. We'll see you soon. Let's do this. I didn't know. That was so good. I feel like I know you.
Oh, now that I know where it is.
Yeah, that'd be great.